Have you ever tried to paint on top of a dry oil layer and noticed the fresh paint won't stick, like it's sliding or beading up? Or maybe your painting dried with a patchy, dull spots that look completely lifeless. These are common problems in oil painting, and they both have to do with how oil behaves on the surface. Today we are going to look closely at beading up and oiling out. What causes those issues, how to prevent them, and how to use oiling out correctly so your layers look even, rich and professional. Let's start with beading up, which is usually a frustrating problem painters run into. This happens when you go to paint a new layer, but the medium or oil just sits on the surface and forms little beads or droplets. It won't flow or stick properly. It's almost like trying to paint on plastic. Beading up happens when the surface underneath is too non-absorbent. That could be because you used too much oil or medium in the previous layer and the surface is a bit too greasy or slick. Or maybe you painted on top of a glossy medium, like in this example where I used too much liquid and oil just won't stick to it. The problem here is that oil paint needs a bit of a tooth and absorbency to adhere properly. When the surface is sealed or overly oily, the fresh paint, medium or oil has nothing to grip onto. So, how do you prevent beading up from happening? First, wait. The previous layer may just need a little bit more drying time, but if it's still beading, gently wipe the surface with a little solvent, or lightly scuff it up with fine sandpaper, sponge or brush with rough bristles to give it some grip for the oil to adhere to the paint surface. But be gentle with it, because you don't want to accidentally remove the fresh layer of paint. You need to be conscious of how the layers of your painting behave. Beading up is not just annoying, it can lead to uneven drying and poor adhesion, which affects the longevity of your painting. Now let's talk about oiling out. Unlike beading up, oiling out is a technique, not a problem. It's something we do on purpose to solve uneven surfaces in dried painting. Sometimes when oil paint dries, it can look dull or matte in some areas. That's called sinking in. It happens when the oil from the paint gets absorbed into the layer underneath, especially if you use an absorbent ground or pigments that like to suck a little bit too much oil, like burnt umber or ultramarine blue. You probably have experienced that with those pigments, when you paint something dark one day using those, and you try to get back to it the next day, and you notice the darks are just flat and you can't tell the color that you painted. That's when oiling out comes in handy. It helps restore the saturation and gloss to those sunken spots, so they match the rest of the painting. It also makes the surface more receptive to new paint, kind of like reactivating the painting, so it behaves like a fresh layer again. For oiling out, you should be using oil or medium that you've been using in previous layers of your painting. Most paint manufacturers use linseed oil as base for the paints, so I recommend you using that. If you're using something else, feel free to use another oil. So, how you do it? Apply a small amount of oil on a clean cloth like that and rub it into the cloth so it's not dripping wet when you touch the canvas. It needs to be just a little oily, and then gently rub it into the sunken areas that you're about to paint and let it sit for about a minute to penetrate the dry paint. Then wipe off the excess completely. You don't want a wet, glossy surface. It should just look refreshed and slightly satin. The biggest mistakes painters make is leaving too much oil on the surface, which can cause yellowing, wrinkling or tacky paint later on. And you probably ask yourself, can I oil out the whole painting? Technically yes, but it's best used only where needed. Overusing oiling out can build up unnecessary oil and create long-term issues. Think of oiling out as moisturizing dry skin. You're not bathing it in oil, you're just giving it a little nourishment to even out the texture. Also, never oil out over a surface that's still wet or partially dry. The layer underneath must be completely dry to the touch, usually several days or quicker if you used fast drying medium like liquid. So, to sum it all up, beading up is a sign your surface is too slick, and you might need to scuff it up a little or reconsider the amount of medium or oil you are using when you paint. Oiling out is a helpful method to refresh dull and dry sunken in areas. Just remember, a little oil goes a long way. Understanding how oil interacts with different surfaces will really help you layer confidently and avoid issues down the road. So, if this short video helped you, leave a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you've ever run into those problems before. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing. That really helps the channel. Thank you for watching.